Okay, we're live.
Shall we totally repeat the conversation we had just before we went live, right?
No,
Because that was
no,
quite
we don't.
interesting.
We don't. We don't.
We just said that was the best part.
Can we get started, Jessica?
Let's get started.
Okay. So hello and welcome everybody to today's session on API governance in gaming. What we're seeing in gaming is really part of the broader API economy paradigm where APIs are no longer just technical connectors, but strategic enablers to ecosystems, models, and revenue streams. But obviously, with this opportunity come also risks, and as we know, the problem is that with this web of APIs, which is becoming more complex and more fragile, any breaks are resulting in possible revenue losses. That is why guardrails that ensure growth is delivered securely, reliably, and in a compliant manner. Our goal today is simple. By end of this webinar, we would like to leave you with a better understanding of the drivers, challenges, and next steps for the effective API governance within your organizations. And we would also like to leave you with some practical takeaways which we can use during these new implementations. My name is Kurt, and I am a partner at KPMG. I am part of the digital consulting team within KPMG. I've been in the tech industry for over 25 years, and I specialize in guiding clients to their digital transformation journeys with a particular focus on effective technology adoption and developing strategic partnerships. Today with me, we have an amazing industry-focused panel, as you can see, representing operators, aggregators, integrators, and we're going to explore together what API governance really means in practice. So please allow me to introduce our panel. Starting with, we have Alexandr Tomic, founder of Alea. Alexandr is a tech entrepreneur and investor with over a decade of hands-on experience in the online gaming industry. As the co-founder of Alea, he has been a driving force behind its evolution into a secure and reliable aggregation platform. He is also, as you know, a vocal advocate for strong API governance and best practices, and we're thrilled to have him share his real-world insights from the operator's perspective. Then we have Ashley Lang, CEO of Pragmatic Solutions. Ashley brings more than 2 decades of leadership experience in the gaming industry with a diverse background that includes key roles at Bet365 and as the founder of both Odobo and Lotomart. Since taking the helm at Pragmatic Solutions, he has championed an operator-first approach and the use of open APIs to enable greater flexibility and innovation. We then have Dr. Eyal Loz, Chief Product Officer of Ruby Play. Eyal is a distinguished mathematician and computer scientist who has a long track record of driving innovation in the gaming industry. Prior of his roles as Chief Product Officer at Ruby Play, he spent over 6 years leading global innovation at Playtika. He'll be joining to discuss the unique challenges of creating new gaming experience whilst ensuring security and compliance. We also have Felipe Fraga, Chief Business Officer of Estrella Bet. Felipe is a highly accomplished professional in the sports and gaming technology sector, recently recognized as well as the C-level of the year at the Biz Awards 2025. As the founder and chief business officer of Estrella Bet, his legal expertise and deep industry knowledge give him a unique perspective on these institutional relations and the future of iGaming in regulated markets. Last but not least, we have Justin Kosnet, Chief Product Officer at Continent 8. Justin has over 25 experience in technology leadership and service delivery, has worked with the majority of the online operators and regulatory authorities worldwide, driving the development of secure and compliant solutions tailored to the complex needs of the global betting and gaming industry. So let's now dive into the topic of the day with starting with the API governance and landscape drivers. So from a consulting view, we see API governance being driven by compliance, ecosystems, complexity, and business resilience. But let's hear from you directly. What's driving the need for API governance in your part of the industry? Starting from you, Philip, from your perspective, what pressures are you seeing? Are these more regulatory, more about player experience, or about keeping integration stable?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me in this panel. It's amazing with a lot of friends and partners of Stelabet. I told before that we can still on the meeting to discuss the evolution of our partner with Prague and Alea and also Ruby Play, especially talking about API. It's very important to have in focus that is kind of the core of any organization and any regulated operation. Not only because it's mandatory to comply everything and to have the actual APIs working and not being a rogue API, but also because it brings to us safety that all the transactions, even is a financial transaction or a gaming transaction, it can be done in the right place and in the right way to have a better player experience. The most important, especially in markets like Brazil, when the competition is so high, is that as fast as possible your site, your operation can be, it is better to acquire and to retain players. So with correct APIs, correct integrations, correct and good quality between all the holders of the gaming, not only operators but also the providers, it for us is fundamental. It's pivotal to guarantee a better player experience.
Thank you, Felipe. Alex, Ashley, and Eyal, sitting in the middle of so many connections, what's pushing you to formalize governance standards? We're starting with Alex.
Me, sorry.
Yes, please.
Can you repeat the question?
Of course I can. So sitting in the middle of so many connections, what's pushing you to formalize governance standards when it comes to APIs?
Okay, thank you. Good. So Alea started in 2012 as an operator, and we built our internal aggregator by having to do it. And what we've noticed already back in time is that a lot of these APIs were faulty. Even NetEnt's API was faulty back in time. Microgaming's API was faulty. Or some games were faulty. I don't know if you remember the AWP series of games, award-winning prize slots, the UK Pub 30 slots. You know, they had a bug back in time, and every time when we as an operator were coming to the game provider, game students saying, okay, there's a problem here, there's this win, it seems illegitimate, they would answer, no, everything's fine. These companies today, they have matured, all of them. And they have very strong APIs, they have strong integration teams. But we see a lot of new studios that are coming on the market, and of course, what they do is that they focus on building good games, and API are not a priority for them. However, these APIs can be used by a growing ecosystem of hackers in order to generate fake wins, and we saw it all. I mean, we had so many studios coming to us and so many operators saying we've been hacked, and the story was coming on and over again. We've been hacked, and we've seen that it's a silent bleeding. A lot of operators don't know it. A lot of studios, they know it, they don't say it to the operator. And when they find out, it's millions that have been taken away by these hackers. And these hackers, they go all around all the casinos, and they hack every single game. And even if the game is not, because an operator can think it's okay, it's just 0.1% of my GGR, this game. Yes, it's not about the risk exposure. It's not about the exposure you give it on your website, because this hacker is going to find these games. Okay, so you really need to be careful, because before these hackers were hacking banking APIs. Today, banking APIs are barely hackable. You have PCI compliance, you have 3D secures. There's no way to hack it. So as we are the only industry where there's money in and money out, what's the best to hack today? It's a game API, because you can generate wins without having to pay for the bets, and that's the most important thing, and that's why we see these hacks growing more and more.
Ashley, Eyal, do you share the same perspectives and the different perspectives to Alex's?
Well, I don't know about having any different perspectives. I agree with everything you said. I might add to it, though, that as a platform provider, one thing operators expect from us is resilience and stability and predictability, reliability from the platform. So a big motivation or a big driver for us to increase governance and shift governance as far as we can to the left and embed it within our development standards is partly to ensure that we can move quickly forward without having to constantly patch and recover from issues related to API protocols between our technologies and third-party technologies. So the rationale for adopting a very proactive approach to API governance is really to enable us to move quickly and support the next frontiers that our customers are looking for us to empower through API integration with our platform. So it's just a good policy, full stop, aside from the security reasons that Alex mentions. And the vulnerabilities aren't strictly financial. I mean, financial is obviously the primary concern when it comes to motives that a hacker might have to interfere with your system. But any other API that is faulty or not integrated properly with the platform can impact customer experience, as Felipe highlights. And ultimately, that has a commercial impact on the business. So we come at it obviously primarily from a first front to protect and defend against is the reasons that Alex highlighted. But because of the variety of integrations we have to our platform, the variety of services that are connected, we also have to look at non-financial performance measures that have to do with optimal performance and scalability and resilience and reliability of the platform.
So
Yeah.
I really agree with both what Alex and Ashley said, and I'd like to add to this a few elements. So first of all, from what both Alex and Ashley said, when you have an API that is hackable, you have a game that is hackable because of a bad connection, that can really impact your reputation. So we've seen very recently, just with Playtech, we had if you've noticed the news over the last couple of weeks, they had a massive issue that actually wasn't their fault. But then there is a big reputational impact when something like this happens, when your game is being hacked and money is being taken. That's then you need to be a big PI to kind of explain like actually whose fault was it, and that's not really good for anyone, not for the operators, not for the suppliers as well. So it actually transcend to other things where you think of a new supplier comes in. So like for us at RubyPlay, it's becoming less of a problem, but now we've launched a new studio called Koala Games, and what we had or the advantage of Koala was that because we have a robust reputation, we can get really high max exposure because we have the reputation of having a robust API, and we're not our games are not being hacked, and that allow Koala Games to enjoy this and have a large max exposure and the trust. The max exposure is, having a large max exposure really is how you'd call the trust being given to you as a supplier of content. Where if you don't have a high max exposure, it means that you're not going to be able to attract the same financial results. So I think that actually having standardization and governance really can help both the reputation, but also can help smaller studios coming in and having more of a fair go, say, more democratic go on getting the content out. But I want to also say that there's a huge cost, like standardization. Like nothing is standardized. Nothing. Like we talk about API, but nothing is standardized. Not how we look at volatility, not how we call the different features. You can have free rounds, free spins, buy feature, buy bonus, and there's not a standard in the industry at large, in the product side, in the API side, and I think that in a way, if we can start creating a culture of standardization, it can help all of us, even though it seems a bit strange because we're all competing and there's so many companies competing, and it's, I think, one of the toughest industry in the world, in how competitive it is. But still, having some element and culture of standardization can really help. I would say that for us, doing reverse integration, for example, we have to rewrite our system to completely to really align with this, and then having all of those lack of standardization and having to actually do this work constantly. When you then arrive at areas like change management, which is really important if you have an ISO certification, or if you operate in the US, it makes this side of things hugely expensive. Whereas if you have a standardized approach in API specifically, but in general, can really lower the cost. And when we look at it internally, we're talking like over 60% in overhead cost reduction of the technology, which is very significant.
Good. Justin, from your perspective, when it comes to APIs, what are clients asking you for? Is it speed? Is it security? Is it compliance? Where is the major focus of the client lying?
I think we have that we do have a bit of a unique view of all the B2Cs, B2Bs, whether they're operators, aggregators, or anything. So we see probably the two areas of concern that have been mentioned. So there's the connectivity piece, there's the latency, interruptions due to internet connectivity, the distance between the platform provider and the B2C, or vice versa. We see a lot of that, and we're sometimes on, unfortunately, the receiving end of calls of both when one of them has a problem, even if it's the internet and outside of our control. With some of our customers, we're lucky in that we host both ends, so we're able to provide private connections, so they're not on the internet, they're not hackable, but they're also less likely to go down or suffer latency or issues in that space. But the other side is probably the security that Alex mentions at the start. So we're an API, especially if it's a point on the internet, it's a vector, a point of attack, it's a cyber risk effectively for the business, and you have to protect it. Different operators are different API developers are at different levels of maturity and capability. The smaller guys are not going to have an internal security audit team. They're not going to be, thinking about vulnerability testing and penetration testing at first. They're going to think, how do I make this game good? How do I sell it? How do I maximize the number of operators who take my game or take my integration? So a lot of them are going to have to look for external help to do that kind of thing. So that's kind of what we see. It's the connectivity or the connectedness part of the B2Bs and B2Cs, and also the security of, effectively both operators, or both, well, the best way of saying it, both businesses are effectively opening a front door into their back end in some way, and they need to make sure that those are secure and that they can trust each other effectively. To Eyal's point about governance, it's all of our customers, even though they serve the same market, even with some of the same kind of games, everyone does it differently, and so I think it's governance around that connectivity and that security that is probably more likely to happen than everyone doing their integration in the same way. That's probably less likely to happen in a competitive scenario.
Thank you. So we've seen a bit what's driving the need for API governance. Let's verge a bit into now the challenges, and maybe you bringing in some perspective of the lessons learned through API mishaps. One challenge that I've seen is, with standardization has been already mentioned, is fragmentation. We have many organizations who have dozens of APIs. There's no central catalog. There's no ownership. When outages happen, it's pure chaos. Let me ask each and every one of you, what has been the biggest API governance challenge that you have seen, and what have you learned from it? Perhaps you could bring even some specific examples which could resonate more with the attendees. Alex, starting from you.
Okay, so as an operator, what we did at the beginning, we were like a bubble tower. We were speaking, let's say, 50 different languages because we integrated, just for the sake of it, let's say 50 software providers. As Eyal explained it very eloquently, there's no API that is the same. So you literally speak 50 different languages. Which is an issue because you need to reconciliate them at some point. And that's what your internal aggregator does. And that's how we started thinking we should sell this thing, because actually there's value there. This reconciliation thing that we call an aggregator is just not reselling games. It's really creating one language out of 50 languages. And then we start integrating more and more software providers. But the problem that we saw is that when we were integrating Play and Go and Pragmatic, they knew their shit. The APIs, the language we were integrating were language that actually we learned from them as an aggregator. But then when the new software provider came on the market, we were basically trying to learn the language of a 2-year toddler. And they didn't speak properly. So we thought, okay, we're gonna, as Eyal said, we're going to do reverse integration. So it does put a burden on the game studio because now they have to speak our language. So we create our API. So not just the API that goes from us to the operator. Okay, this API, let's say, is known. Now it's the API that goes, instead of having the API coming from the game studio to us, we have an API coming from us to the game studio. So now they have to speak our language, which means that they have to adapt the system. Because sometimes the system cannot handle retries or rollbacks, reconciliation, and many other things. Some of them, they don't even have credentials. I mean, I don't know if you can believe that, but some studios, I won't name them, don't have credentials. They just look at your IP address. They say, okay, we've whitelisted your IP. Yeah, but we can spoof an IP. It's very easy to spoof an IP. So we known on the market to be difficult to work with on the software side, but it's not because we're difficult to work with, it's because in several cases that they're not at the level. And now what I would give as an advice to any operator, we see many big operators, they have the integration team. Still what they do, they integrate the API of all these small software providers. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I know very few operators, and they're the big old ones, the Kindred type of ones and Betson type of ones that have developed. They don't only have the integration team, they have their own API and they give it to the provider. And that's the way to do. Because when you build your PAM, you build your fortress, you can't have 100 and now 150. We have more and more software providers, entry points coming from the companies that don't have the level of security that you have, that don't do the penetration test that you're doing, as Justin was saying. Don't do the security assessment, don't have the ISO certification that you have, and basically you're opening back doors into your system. So you need to develop your own API and give it to this provider, because at the end of the day, the liability is on the operator. Or you choose a technological partner like us that's going to do the job for you. And that's what an aggregator is becoming, or should become. We aggregators at the beginning, basically, we were just buying and reselling games. Then we became like game curators. So we're telling you which games are good for which markets. Okay, we game specialists. And now we're becoming API specialists. And I think that that's the key thing today. What a game aggregator should be is it's an API specialist. It's the technological partner that's going to ensure that all the software provider, all the game provider, all these studios that you want to test, because there's a lot of them that are coming on the market, and you can't test all of them, and you should test all of them because there are hidden gems there that you need to integrate them properly, that the games that they're going to deliver are going to be delivered in the proper way.
Justin, integrators often inherit some messy environments. From your experience or through experiences that you had, what has been the hardest governance challenge that you had to fix during a client project?
Wow, I think I'm without being in too much danger of repeating myself. One of the things we tend to see is, like I said, the less mature kind of providers don't have the capability, and they're almost too desperate to make the sale than worry about the security and the potential vulnerability. As Alex said, I do remember, I hope it's a long time now, the days of just whitelisting on IP happening as the easiest way to set up an API. And I'd like to think that's well behind us. I remember those days, but for sure, credential use in APIs, you could even do effectively multi-factor authentication for APIs now with token-based solutions. That if you don't have the expertise, call on someone. Doesn't have to be us, but if you don't have a web app and API protection service, or you don't have the ability to get to do a pen test on yourself or use a third party, look for someone that has. And I think, unfortunately, as is often the case, the power actually exists in whoever has most leverage in the relationship. So it's going to be the guy that you're selling to is probably going to put, as we would say, honors on you to have that kind of thing up front. So you want to see the kind of the buyers be the ones request off the sellers. Demonstrate to me that you're secure. Demonstrate to me that I'm not opening a backdoor effectively to my service for exploit, because the exploits are getting easier. 6-7 years ago, it would take 10 hours for someone who managed to get into your system to exfiltrate totally. It's down to 48-50 minutes nowadays. The use of AI and other tools, as Alex said, it's a high reward area. A lot of cash going through a lot of systems. You're an easy target. But I think the guys on this call have obviously got a lot more to give you in terms of what governance looks like on the actual APIs.
Felipe, you are often on the front line when an API fails. Can you share a challenge that you faced and what it taught you about governance, or what perspective it gave you about governance?
Sorry, was muted. To be in the front line for us is always complex things. When something bad happens, we are up to pay or for anyone that is gaining some money, even it's irregular. We had an experience a few months ago with none of those here in this call. A casino provider using an API in a wrong way make for us a loss of almost 2 million Brazilian reais or more than this. Of course, we settle together, we sit together and discuss and solve it between us and them. But anyway, that fail of security, it was not even a hack, fraud or something, but some fail on API made this impact in our organization. Of course, we had to handle with players that was complaining a lot about this. So for us, the challenge is how to define in the best way how we can integrate a provider to our ecosystem. That's Pragmatic Solutions help us a lot in every discussion to find the best way. For example, here in this room, there is Ruby Play, one of our major partners for casino, and we choose to create to use Ruby Play through Alea, through Pragmatic Solutions, to have the content of Ruby Play, because this is the safest way you can have, and it's, as I said, it's faster, it's secure. We can solve any kind of problem you can imagine. We know the way to correct any eventually bugs we have. We hadn't never, right, Dr. Yo? But the main challenge for us is to find the right way to guarantee the display experience and to guarantee the security of our operation. to avoid any try of hack and try to challenge in Brazil. You know, guys, it's not easy. We always are running against those guys that try to scam us, and sometimes it's well organized. These bad guys trying to get some money instead of playing regular games. So we must be clever all the time and have the conversation open with all the stakeholders to assure that all integrations, all API integrations must be safe.
Thank you. My advice to clients is always to treat APIs as a product with a proper lifecycle management, standards, and ownership. With that in mind, Eyal, what would be the single best practice that you would advise any operator, aggregator to follow when it comes to API governance?
I think I'd like for me, I was thinking about the experience as well. Is that you need to think, how do you fit your innovation into that existing standards? Like what we found is that when like when you go to shows, you hear a lot about innovation or even complaints about the lack of innovation in the industry, and a lot of the innovation doesn't necessarily sit around the games, but it's definitely sit around your wallet transaction. So if you have some kind of an award system that now that's a big part of the meta games, and the gamification revolves around that. What we found is that when we start developing those, we faced quite a lot of challenges rolling it out, because now you have you create something innovative that's slightly different, and now you have to find the language of this with each and every one of your client, which then becomes a nightmare. And then it also makes it a lot harder to roll out a product that can be a very successful product, but the preliminary cost of actually getting it out there becomes really high. So I think finding common ways of describing things and using them is can be really important and really help you put out a high quality product in your projects.
Thank you. Ashley, what is that one governance standard that, in your opinion, really makes integration smoother?
Shift governance as far to the left as you can. So embed governance best practices into the development design of the integration and into the foundation of your development team's approach to integration. So make sure it's just part of the process. And that governance is non-negotiable. Also, things that haven't been covered here, like monitoring abilities, documentation, register and certification around APIs. Some sort of the rigidity and the process that you put around discipline, you put around testing and verification. I want to touch on something that hasn't been covered here, because I agree. That's actually a really interesting conversation. I agree with everything everybody said. So rather than repeat what has been said, one thing I wanted to highlight is that I've never had a commercial manager from either a game provider or inside of an operator like Felipe come to me and say, let's get this integration done, and don't forget about the documentation and the API governance and the monitoring. I mean, the priority is always, how quickly can you do this so we can access the benefit of this integration? And it's difficult sometimes to temper that with the realities that come from applying a proper procedure and governance around the integrations that you do. And I think shortcuts are often tabled about, well, let's say, particularly as you said, Alex, novice game development studios are always eager to build their distribution very quickly, and they'll offer us, we'll just integrate to you. Just give us access to the APIs. Let us do it. We don't want to wait in a queue to be integrated, because we prioritize our integrations at the requests of our customers. And if it's difficult for a second tier or a new game developer to get prioritized, they'll often ask if they can do it themselves. Totally understand the motivation behind that. But the reason we resist it is because it's not just about plugging in. It's about applying all the other disciplines that sit around that to ensure that we protect the integrity of our systems for the service of our customers, and ultimately the reputation of everybody involved, including that eager game developer that wants to get their content to market. The last thing they want is to get live and be involved in a scandal shortly after go live. So we have I'm rolling back a bit to one of the challenges you asked. One of the challenges we have is just ensuring that we can service the needs of our customers as quickly as possible without compromising the need to move quickly. It's totally doable, but it is something that maybe we hadn't discussed in the same level of detail already on this call, is the challenge between the commercial demands of a business and the security, compliance, and technical demands of maintaining resilience and integrity.
I would pose a question to Alex at this point. Alex, how would you balance the element of governance, innovation, and go-to-market or commercialization?
Basically, we have discovered on the way that we were here to do the boring stuff. I can't say it in another way. I said already, we were reselling games, and then, okay, you're reselling games. There's nothing very noble there. All right, you just buy and resell your own contracts, and then after that, the noble part came. We became game curators. We recommend games. We were building this recommendation engine, and now we're gonna recommend games. Oh, that's noble. And we found out all the API problems, and we thought, fuck, there's something more urgent to do on this side, because basically your house is burning while you're working on your little recommendation engine, and you need to do the API shit, and it's really boring. And at the end of the day, what the message would be to the operators and to the game studios: let's do the boring stuff. Game studios, spend your time developing great games. Let us handle the API, because anyways we're going to do a reverse integration. It means that you're going to have to integrate our API, and operators or develop your own API or go through us. So it changes it's not just the business model, because let's say instead of taking 2% for reselling our games, we're gonna continue doing that, of course, but we're also gonna become a pass. It means that what we're gonna do, we're gonna resell the fact that we control and secure all the API logistic chain going from the game studio to us to the operator, and that's basically we discovered on the way our new and real mission, which is building APIs.
Thank you, guys. I mean, obviously, time flies when you're having fun, and we've reached almost.
By the way, Alex, you
end.
know that Warren Buffett said that if your business isn't boring, you're not making money. You know that? You know that saying?
No, must be. Where is that saying coming from, Ayan?
No, it's true. Look it up.
No, but tell me, where is it coming from?
No, Warren Buffett once said that.
Warren Buffett. Okay.
Warren Buffett once said that, if your business isn't boring, you're not making money. So yeah,
fantastic.
You can still be exciting, Alex. It's just the business that has to be boring.
Thank you for the clarification, nice. Justin.
Guys, thank you all for the great discussion. I would like to obviously conclude with some remarks. Obviously, APIs are very important for the gaming industry. It's always good to strike a balance between levels of compliance, go-to-market, and revenue generation, which are all important to the industry. Before concluding, I would like to give you the opportunity to provide the last 10-second remarks that you want to mention in terms of the concluding points, please. Alex?
Sorry, guys. Yeah, can you hear me? We have questions. Do we want to answer the questions?
We can if you have time.
We have 6 remaining minutes, and I see questions from Dejan Jovic, who is from Blue Ocean Gaming, which is one of our competitors that we respect a lot, and we respect Dayan too. And very interesting questions, actually.
Go ahead, Alex. Answer.
Okay, so should I read them? So let me read.
I think it's on screen. It's on screen already.
It's on screen. It's on screen. Okay, so I would like to ask, what are secondary security measurements you have in place? Question goes to operators, aggregators, game provider. Do you have some automated mechanism to detect and block gameplay when reaching certain thresholds? Anyone wants to answer that question?
Well, I can say a few words that we now started implementing alerts and monitoring on our games. Obviously, blocking is not quite something that we do. We can just block a player, but then we can definitely alert and work with an operator if we see a certain behavior. Mostly, what we see is that like we now have a better understanding of the lay of the land of player behavior. So we didn't end up seeing any security issues. So it was worth doing the exercise anyway. But yeah, that's what we're doing. The snag with that of implementing a NOC system, we had this at Playtika as well, is that there's a lot of false alerts, and then you have to kind of like work with that and not then end up building an habit that we see too many false alerts and then you just miss the real one. But yeah, that's the balance between that of creating some kind of a monitoring service.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to answer that question?
No, I think Dejan followed up, and he was very much asking about not a problem with the API, but more a problem, a bug in a game, and what you do in your back office. And I think as El said, you monitoring the back office functions, seeing if you're achieving, standards between thresholds is the best way of doing it. And the danger is always going to be alert fatigue. The more alerts you have, whether it's security alerts or even game and monitoring alerts, you've got the potential for alert fatigue. And before you know it, your business is spending too much time looking at alerts and not doing the other stuff. It's a delicate balance.
So on our side, there's two things we're doing. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. So we have reconciliation that's done through the API, okay? But when the servers of the game provider are hacked, the API is not going to allow us to see the hack. So now we have a server-to-server reconciliation. It's a new thing we're launching. With some software providers, because they need to allow us to have access to their servers. Okay, it's a replica server usually, and then we can see if their servers have been hacked, and we see one thing in the API and we see another thing on the server side. Okay, so that's one of the measures that we are taking. However, we wouldn't see a hack in the game. Now, there are other things that we're looking at. We're playing now with basically with AI. We're using Looker as a data visualization tool. It's part of Google Suite, and we have Gemini that's inside Looker. So there's a lot of things we can see with AI that we couldn't see before. It's I can't talk about it now because it would take too long. I'm just going to take an example from real life. I have Whoop, and I sent a screenshot to ChatGPT of my Whoop, and I asked ChatGPT, because I had atrial fibrillation that night, what do you think happened last night? And the answer of ChatGPT, just at looking at this screenshot, was, I believe you watched a movie during the last 2 hours before you went to bed alone. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Why was I watching a movie? Because your heart rate is going down slowly. I see there is no movement, but you are still awake. So you're watching a movie. It sounds like magic, but if you look, it's a decision tree with statistics. Okay, it was like watching a movie or reading a book. More people are watching movies than book. It could even have said you were watching Netflix, and would have been probably right, and maybe even which movie I was watching if you would do the top 10 Netflix movie. And then I said, why alone? I mean, why this little comment at the end, you went to bed alone? Because there is no surge in the heart rate at no moment during the movie, neither at the end of the movie, which would suggest that you had intercourse. I mean, literally like that. And I'm like, oh, wow. And that's when I thought I'm going to take screenshots of our back office, of the Looker back office, the data visualization tool that we have. I'm going to send them all to ChatGPT, teach what GGR, bonus, etc. And it's going to give me all these amazing insights. And I talked to Charlotte, my co-founder and CPO. She said, Alex, don't worry about that. First of all, it's very hard to integrate through OpenAI API. And we already have Gemini through Google Looker, and we're already working on it, and we're getting incredible insights. So we don't have a product yet. We're just playing. I'm not saying we're working with AI. I mean, everybody says that. We're just playing with it, but it's coming, and it's gonna change the game.
I think, guys, this takes us to the end of this because we can keep on going with questions. This takes us to the end of this webinar.
If I could fit in one point before we go to what I think kind of puts a bow on everything we've discussed, is that there used to be a time, and maybe for some operators that develop their own technology in-house, there's still a big risk landscape that they're covering across the entire tech stack. But you don't need to be in that position, because as we've heard from companies on this call, there's a lot of mature building blocks that can be components in your technology stack that already embody best practices. And you can dramatically reduce your risk landscape by working with partners like Alea. I'd like to say like with Pragmatic Solutions and with Continent 8 and Ruby Play and others that are on this call, where you vetted those suppliers for their ability to take that problem inside the domain that they service your business with, whether that's games aggregation, payments aggregation, or otherwise, and vet and trust that supplier's credentials to service that in that regard, and then limit the APIs that you build upon yourself, and then apply the best practices inside your organization, but in a much more limited scope. So it doesn't need to be intimidating. It doesn't need to put your whole business at risk. There are great companies that already embody the standards we've talked about, and that you can leverage to make up the technology stack for your business.
Thank you.
I couldn't say anything better to close this conversation. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
I would like to close by thanking the panelists and thanking also all of you for joining. And obviously, we hope to see you in some upcoming webinars that we have prepared for you. Thank you very much. And good day.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.